Stribog means God of the Winds. Sometimes that's me after Taco Bell. Woo! 3 hits.
600 North Mont, Department 4, open 911 line. Any Hallback units at 21779 and RD457.
I'm no fan of the PCC, or the pistol caliber carbine. I've never understood the craze for them. To me, if I'm going to carry or stow a long gun, I want it to be in a long gun caliber. Now I know that a 9mm or a 357 has significantly more punch coming out of a 16-inch or an 18-inch barrel than out of a pistol. I'm not dumb, I just look like it. But if I have a 16-inch carbine for self-defense, I'd rather be slinging 5.56 or 300 blackout or even 308 out of it. Well, like so many things in my life, this philosophy got kicked in the nuts recently. I was visiting the Global Ordnance booth at SHOT Show last January. I was mostly interested in their new monolithic barreled rifles and pistols, but while I waited for one of the gun waiters to come and help me, I spied a super cool looking sub-gun, and it was called the Stribog SP10A3. Now you're already tapping furiously away on your keyboard. You're blasting me for calling the Stribog a sub-gun. Well, let's go with this term for a minute, and maybe I'll change your mind. A lot of people are calling the Stribog SP10A3 a PCC, a pistol caliber carbine, and I don't really think so. It's somewhere between a pistol and a subgun. I asked Global Ordnance to send me one of these for testing, and like everything I've asked for on this channel, I offered to pay them for the gun. I don't view myself as some important influencer that deserves free shit, and I hate the term influencer. Well, Global Ordnance thought I was cool enough to send a Stribog to, and it arrived a few weeks ago, so I thought maybe you'd like to see why this thing fits a special niche in my collection, and probably yours too. They're not paying me for this review. They told me to give it an honest look, good or bad. They told me to say what I actually thought, and when a company is that confident in their product, it's pretty impressive. I recently shot one of these Stribog SP9 pistols, and it was a fun little gun. I was able to hit steel targets at 100 yards pretty easily, but the SP9 didn't get me all randy, at least not in its current configuration. Now I'm a fan of the 10mm. I have a lot of 10mm pistols. I love the versatility of the 10mm round, and I really get excited when it's loaded hot, the only way a 10mm should be. Global Ordnance shipped me a 10mm Stribog, the SP10, and it has all of the newest features, hence the A3 labeling. The Stribog SP10A3 comes out of the box as a pistol because it has a pistol grip and it shoots a pistol cartridge. Let's be honest, as a pistol, this thing is a little underwhelming. It's a big, bulky 10mm pistol type thing that has no real world use in this configuration. But hold the phone. Global Ordnance sent the SP10 with an SP Tactical folding brace. And while I was waiting for it to arrive, I picked up a muzzle brake off of eBay. I found a Vortex Strike Fire optic that wasn't being used on anything, and I dug up an old sling from a different weapon and some Magpul backup sights that I had sitting around. So what niche does this fill? Well, I have 10mm pistols and a lot of rifles, but I don't have anything in between. Nothing that was compact and still powerful. And as I've discussed before, I'm not a big fan of pistol caliber carbines. Since I'm always carrying a 10mm pistol with me when I'm out in the woods, I figured this 10mm sub-gun was a great companion that could live in my side-by-side and offer me a little more power than a pistol. Well, I was kind of shocked about that topic, but more on that in a minute. The SP10A3 receiver comes apart easily just by pushing these two takedown pins, exactly like an AR-15. You only need to push the rear pin to pivot the upper and lower receivers apart, and once you do that, the plastic Picatinny rail piece that comes from the factory can be slid out, and this SP Tactical brace can be slid into the slots in mere seconds. Even a dullard like me figured it out with no instructions. Well, then I screwed off the factory thread protector and replaced it with this eBay muzzle brake. Don't ask me what the brand is or how I got it. I just looked for a 40 caliber muzzle brake, and it was in the $20 or $30 range. I popped on the Magpul backup sights first, and I zeroed the gun with them before I added the Vortex Strike-Fire optic. I took advantage of the M-lock slots on the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock sides of the SP10 to mount a Magpul QD sling cup, then the sling. And now I had what was essentially a 10mm semi-automatic subgun that could reach out there and engage targets a little farther than I was able to do with my pistols. And even more importantly, it looked badass, and we all know that that's what really wins a gunfight. The Stribog is made in Slovakia by Grand Power. It was originally designed as an automatic weapon for their military, and it was first chambered in 9mm. Now, years later, we have quite a few improvements in the Stribog design, and it's chambered in 10mm and 45 as well. Now, I always loved the concept of the H&K UMP 45. Beautiful looking gun. And this thing is like the UMP, but so much better designed. I got to shoot the UMP 45 once, and its recoil was ridiculous. The Stribog is a UMP that almost any of us can own right here at home. And because of its roller delayed action, the recoil was very light. I really couldn't tell it was any different from the 9mm Stribog I shot recently. The Stribog's action is more simplified than an HK MP5 or the UMP. Now here's the internal guts laid out for you, and as you can see, that little roller bar delays the action until the pressures are lower, and it therefore reduces the recoil. The receiver of the SP10A3 is longer than the SP9 for obvious reasons, and it's another reason why the SP10 feels more like a subgun than a pistol. It's definitely not long enough to be a rifle. The SP10 has a monolithic Picatinny rail on top. There are no splits or joined up pieces of a rail, and this means you can mount an optic as far forward as your little heart desires without the risk of it wobbling around and losing zero. Now here's the cool part. Grand Power designed the SP10 with sights inside the rail. I always liked it when a gun comes out of the box ready for use. You could literally get into a shootout on your way home from the gun store. And the Stribog sights are tiny, but still useful.
That's what she said!
So, if you had to deploy them the minute you left the gun shop, you'd be good to go. Hey, what kind of neighborhood is your gun shop in anyway? The front sight post is tiny, kind of like a fly's leg, but it's a little more robust. It's down inside the pick rail, so there's zero chance it'll get knocked or broken off. The rear sight is a square notch, like on any old Glock, but without that white paint. It's also very small, and it's been placed in an odd location, directly over the mag well, about 1/3 of the way back from the muzzle on this rail. And while they work, these sights were tough for me to use with my old eyes, and I found myself looking down the pick rail, but using the notch in the pick rail as the rear sight because it's right there in front of your schnoz, and it comes into view much quicker than the tiny notch located further forward. So this gives the impression of having three things to line up, and I found it kind of confusing. But some days I find putting on shoes confusing, so try them for yourself and don't base your opinion on a dang YouTube video. I highly recommend adding the plastic Magpul backup sights. I added them out in the field and then zeroed them before putting on the Vortex optic. I found the backup sights to be the exact right height for my cheek weld, and like my past experiences with Magpul backup sights, they tend to be crazy accurate when they are first mounted on the gun, and mine didn't need any adjustment before I was hitting steel at 50 yards. So big thanks to Tacticon for sending me this light a while back. I still owe them a comparison of it versus the Surefire Scout light. Getting back to that 6 o'clock piece of rail, I would highly recommend getting an inexpensive hand stop. When I held this little gun, my offhand fingers were awfully close to the muzzle, and under stress, it would be nice to have something solid there to keep my dainty digits from getting zapped. As it was, I simply indexed on the flashlight and never let my hand slide forward, and therefore kept it away from the muzzle, although it was awfully close. Throughout this video, you're going to see my offhand is a little black, and that's actually spray paint. That's not muzzle blast. The Stribog ships with 3 20-round magazines. Yep, 3. That's rare these days, so good on Grand Power for that move. Some guys on the internet complain that the mags are only 20 rounds. Well, I got 3 of the bastards, and I don't see myself in a 61-round gunfight anytime soon. The magazines are straight-walled, like the UMP, and they're translucent. That means they identify as see-through, but not completely clear. This came in handy when I was loading, and I could easily check how many rounds I had left to load. A high-speed guy could also check his ammo level while in the middle of a gunfight, but for us doughy middle-aged dads, just knowing how many more rounds to load is the real reason the transmags are cool. They seem to be completely made out of that hard plastic, no steel reinforced feed lips. So time will tell if the feed lips will chip, but after about 750 rounds and of all kinds of ammo, these lips show no wear at all. I'm talking about the magazine feed lips, you sick bastards. The safety switch is a little lightweight and also made of plastic, but it clicked on and off with a solid snap, so there was no wondering if you were on safe or not. There's a little dot for fire and a little X for safe. Pretty simple. The safety is ambidextrous, and that's a Latin word that means it goes both ways. So let's talk about this magazine release though. Grand Power designed the newer A3 version of this weapon with essentially 3 buttons for releasing the magazines. There are steel push buttons on the left and right sides of the frame, so they're also ambicurious. But the real feature is the paddle mag that releases at the back of the magazine well, where the god of wind intended for it to be. When you grasp the empty mag, your thumb is right there to hit the paddle, and whammy, the mag is ejected right into your hand, and it couldn't be any easier. The push buttons, however, rotate when you push them, so it's an awkward and difficult situation, much like your first girlfriend. I tried using the buttons but quickly gave up because the paddle is just so damn easy. Also like your first girlfriend. I mentioned the 8-inch barrel that's threaded on the end for the muzzle device of your choosing. Well, putting a can on the SP10 would look cool, but the 10mm is a supersonic round, so you wouldn't really be doing much by adding a suppressor. Now, I thought the 8-inch barrel was going to drive the 10mm rounds much faster than my 4.5-inch pistol barrel, but boy was I wrong. And again, we'll revisit that little science experiment in a minute. The trigger was just fine. It had a light, crisp break, right about 4 pounds on my digital gauge. Some guys online complained about the trigger, but I don't think it was bad at all. It was actually better than most of the AR triggers that I own. The charging handle comes from the factory on the left side of the receiver, where it should be, but it can be reversed to the right side if you're a lefty and your parents didn't love you. The bolt lock and bolt release is only on the left side of the gun. It's pretty much the same as an AR bolt release. And with a quick press of our little bolt release button, we're able to drop the bolt. Pretty cool, AR-15 style, but no paddle. It's all right, we can work around that. One thing I really liked was how easy it was to pull back the charging handle with my offhand and also hit the bolt lock with the same hand. The bolt release was simple to use with either a thumb or the heel of my hand, but I'd still prefer a little wider paddle on top of the thing. The action locks open on the last round, and once you eject the old mag and insert the new one, you can hit the bolt release or pull back and slingshot the charging handle. And sorry, LARPers, there is no HK slap with the Stribog. Your nerd girlfriends will once again be disappointed in you. The grip is molded into the polymer lower receiver, and I found it plenty long enough for my big hands. And there was a little checkering on the sides, and that was enough. It's a hollow pistol grip, so if you make some type of plug, you could probably store stuff up there. If I was the king of Slovakia and I was designing the Stribog, I'd probably design a lower receiver that accepted AR pistol grips so that one could choose any type of pistol grip he wanted, but I found the angle on this thing, its circumference, and its length to be just fine. So how'd the damn thing shoot, OG? Well, I thought the recoil was a baby fart. It was stupid simple to keep it on target for rapid follow-up shots. This gun doesn't feel like you're shooting a 10mm due to that roller delayed blowback system. It's a fun gun to shoot. You know how shooting a lot of ARs can get a little boring after a while? They're cool, but they're a little underwhelming. Well, the Stribog SP10A3 was actually fun to shoot. And a huge thanks to Global Ordnance for sending me 500 rounds of their cellular and pellet ammo, because this thing is a little addictive. I burned up a little over 750 rounds of different 10mm ammo over a couple of days. I shot the weak cellular and pellet stuff, but I also shot some hot Underwood stuff and a lot of Nosler, Federal, and PMC stuff as well. The SP10 fed hollow points just as easily as ball ammo. We are hitting steel at 100 yards. With a 10mm pistol. Of course, we've pimped it out with quite a few little doodads. But we're getting them. Holy crap, we just knocked over our steel target at 100 yards. I'm not exactly sure how we did that. Back to 50. I had one malfunction. that I caused on purpose. Watch here.
Call of Duty fans always want to know if the folding stock inhibits the firing of this. Could you fire it from a fold? It only folds to the right. It does block the ejection port. However, it will still fire and catch brass. So how about don't fire it from the folded position? So the firing at once, got a case stuck in there. The case head is over the brass, similar to what happens on an AR-15. This bolt doesn't want to go forward or back. There's just a little bit of rearward play. We're going to try and get it out just enough. I am mangling this piece of brass, punching you guys in the face as we try to get this thing out of here. Whew, we just got it.
Other than that, there were 0 malfunctions. Not even one caused by the gun or the ammo. Now, I'd heard internet rumors that it wouldn't feed weak ammo, but I didn't have that experience. The only thing I didn't try was seeing if it would chamber and feed 40 caliber ammo. And that's something I like to do in my 10mm pistol reviews. And that's a stupid test anyway, so you're not really missing much. Reloaders will get moist over this.
I have been picking these brass cases up off the ground, and I have yet to find one that has any kind of a bulge to it whatsoever. So that's good news for those of you who would like to shoot a lot of 10mm out of your Stribog.
Now, about that 8-inch barrel, I figured it would give me much better velocity out of a 10mm round, but boy was I wrong. There was hardly any velocity increase over the 4.5-inch barrel of my FN510. Check this out.
So some of you may be interested in what the velocity difference is in an 8-inch barrel on the Stribog SP10 versus I think this is a 4.5-inch barrel on pretty much a standard 10mm pistol, the FN510. This is about the normal length of barrel you're going to get in most 10mm carry pistols. So we've loaded up 3 cellular and bellet rounds just for comparison. These are not the hottest rounds out there. And we've loaded up 3 cellular and bellet in the FN510. Let's go put them over the chronograph and see what the difference in velocity is. First, the FN510. 1096, 1103, 1100 even. Okay, now we're going to try 3 rounds of the exact same ammo from the Stribog's 8-inch barrel and see if it makes any difference. 1120, 1110. 1127. Well, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure that those numbers are pretty much the same as the FN510. So what's the point of having a Stribog 8-inch barrel if it's not going to really give you more than about 25-30 feet of velocity? Well, so you get a little more stability out of something like this. You've got 3 points of contact. You've got the benefit of the red dot still, and I'm just able to make longer hits more accurately with something like this than I am the pistol. Yesterday, on day 1 of shooting, I was out shooting 50-yard steel and 100-yard steel with ease once I had this thing dialed in. Not exactly sure that I would be able to hit at least the 100-yard steel with the FN as many times or as easily. So I don't know. There's your difference. You don't have to have one, of course, but it is a handy and cool little weapon. And for those of you who don't have anything like this, like me, this kind of fills the gap between rifles and pistols that I own. This is a cool option, and I really, really like it. One of my top 5 firearms that I own.
Those of us who will never afford an HK MP5 or UMP, we now have an affordable option, even if it doesn't do much to boost the humble 10mm round. It would be an awesome truck gun option, although getting an AR this short isn't really all that hard these days. For me, I'm keeping this one, and it will be mounted under the roof of my side-by-side, out of view of most people, but easily accessed when I'm out in the woods filming stuff all by my lonesome. I'd sure rather have this thing with its 20-round magazines and fast follow-up shots than any other 10mm pistol, if I have the time to go for it, and the bear will check his text messages while I get it out and deploy it. Now, I can't leave you a link to get your own Stribog SP10A3, but I think most of you can use the Google machine and find Global Ordnance's site. They are the exclusive importer of the Stribog SP10A3. So go look them up, get yourself a 10mm or even a 9mm version, and get some of the accessories like the ones I added to my Stribog. Hey, if you like reviews like this, give it a thumbs up down here below. And if you're not already a subscriber to OG's Danger Show, hit the subscribe button. Need some merch? Click on the link in the description section to go get your OG's Danger Show merch. It's laboratory tested and guaranteed to drive away hot chicks. You guys stay safe out there. Stay armed whenever and wherever you can. And until next video, OG out.